These empty containers could still become squash, potatoes, onions, and winter food, but only if you choose the right crops now. Late summer can make a small garden look finished. Tomato vines are tired, cucumber leaves are fading, and a few large pots may be sitting empty. Yet, an empty container is not a dead end. It is a decision point. With enough warm weather, the right planting material, and a realistic understanding of your first frost date, that container may still produce a storage crop this season or begin a harvest for next year. Today we are looking at 13 compact winter squash and storage crops for patios, balconies, decks, and small backyards. Some can be started from seed in long-season regions. Some are far more realistic from transplants, slips, sets, cloves, or certified seed potatoes. And one crop near the end of this list should be planted now, even though you will not harvest it this winter. By the time we finish, you will know what to plant, what to skip, how large the container should be, and which harvests are healthy enough to cure and store. Before choosing a single crop, find your average first full frost date. Use a local extension office, a trusted regional planting calendar, or a weather service based on your zip code. Then, count the number of reasonably warm growing days you have left. Do not treat the average frost date as a guarantee. Frost sometimes arrives earlier, and cool nights can slow warm season crops long before a killing frost appears. Give yourself a safety margin instead of planning for the final possible day. Now read the seed packet or catalogue carefully. Days to maturity may be counted from direct seeding for one crop and from transplanting for another. A squash labeled at 90 days may need close to that full period from seed, while a healthy transplant can shorten the outdoor wait. Even so, transplant shock, heat stress, low light, or poor pollination can add time. The honest question is not, can this crop grow in my container? The question is, can it grow, flower, set fruit, mature, and reach storage quality before my weather turns against it? The planting material matters just as much as the crop name. Winter squash may be direct seeded where the warm season is long, but late planting is often safer with a young transplant that has not become root-bound. Sweet potatoes are started from slips, not from ordinary seed potatoes. Irish potatoes should begin with healthy, certified seed potatoes rather than random grocery store tubers that may carry disease or have been treated to delay sprouting. Onions can begin from seed, transplants, or sets, and the correct choice changes with your region and the amount of time remaining. Shallots are commonly started from small bulbs or sets. Garlic begins with individual cloves and usually grows through winter for harvest the following year. Celeriac has such a long, slow beginning that a well-developed transplant is usually the only sensible late-season option. Choosing the correct starting material can save weeks, but it cannot create warm days that your climate does not have. Now look at the container itself. Compact does not mean miniature roots, miniature leaves, or miniature water needs. It usually means a shorter vine, a bushier habit, or smaller fruit. A 5-gallon bucket may support many vegetables, but a fruiting winter squash is a heavy feeder with a broadleaf canopy and a root system that needs stable moisture. For most single squash plants, think in terms of a sturdy container holding roughly 15 to 25 gallons of high-quality potting mix, with a wider container preferred when possible. Large storage totes, half barrels, and substantial grow bags can work if they drain freely and remain stable. Potatoes and sweet potatoes also benefit from 15 to 20 gallons or more per plant or small planting group. Onions, shallots, garlic, and celeriac use space differently, so a wide container can be more useful than an extremely deep one. Whatever you choose, it must have open drainage holes. Garden soil alone compacts in a pot, so use a container mix that holds moisture but also drains excess water. Compact butternut squash is the first choice, but the word compact must be printed in the variety description, not added by wishful thinking. Traditional butternut vines can travel well beyond the edge of a patio. Bush and short vine selections are easier to direct around a large pot, along a railing, or over a strong, low trellis. Look for a cultivar that fits your remaining season, ideally one listed in the earlier portion of the maturity range for butternut squash. In a region with fewer than about 90 warm days remaining, a new direct sown plant is a gamble. A healthy transplant may still be reasonable in a warm fall climate, but in a northern garden, the better choice may be to save the seed for next spring. This is the first important rule of the video. A crop can be excellent for containers and still be the wrong crop for today's calendar. Give one compact butternut plant a container of at least 15 gallons, and 20 to 25 gallons is safer for consistent moisture and root room. Fill it nearly to the top with fresh potting mix blended with mature compost, but leave enough rim to water without washing soil over the edge. Set the transplant at the same depth it was growing in its nursery pot and avoid disturbing the roots. If direct seeding, sow 2 seeds and thin to the strongest plant after establishment instead of leaving both to compete. Place the support system before the vines become tangled. A short vine plant can be guided across the ground, but keep the fruit away from a surface that stays wet. If you train it upward, use a trellis anchored strongly enough to carry wet foliage and mature squash. Support hanging fruit with a broad fabric sling so the stem does not bear the full load. Do not harvest a butternut simply because it looks large. Storage quality depends on maturity. The skin should develop the mature tan color described for the cultivar. The rind should resist light pressure from a fingernail, and the stem should become hard and corky rather than green and watery. Many winter squashes need roughly 50 to 55 days after successful fruit set to reach full maturity, so noting the date when a fruit begins growing can be more useful than guessing at their size. Cut the squash with clean pruners and leave a short stem attached. Never carry it by the stem. A broken stem creates an entry point for decay. If hard frost threatens, harvest mature fruit before it freezes. Immature fruit can still be cooked, but it should not be expected to store like a fully mature squash. Cure sound butternut squash in a warm, dry, well-ventilated place for approximately 1 week when the variety and harvest condition call for curing. Keep the fruit protected from rain, cold nights, and direct contact with damp soil. Then move it to a cool, dry, ventilated area around 50 to 55 degrees Fahrenheit, rather than a refrigerator or freezing garage. Check every week for soft spots, leaking, mold, or a collapsing stem. Butternut is often among the better storage squashes, but no calendar can guarantee an exact shelf life in a home. Variety, maturity, skin damage, curing, temperature, and humidity all matter. Store only the best fruit and cook damaged fruit first. The next squash takes up less visual space, but it can punish inconsistent watering more quickly than many beginners expect. Acorn squash is naturally appealing to container gardeners because the fruit is smaller and many cultivars have a bush or semi-bush habit. Still, read the description. Some acorn plants produce a concentrated mound of foliage, while others send vines several feet outward. A 15-gallon container is a practical minimum for one plant, with a larger pot giving more protection from heat and drought. Place only one strong plant in the container. 2 seedlings may look harmless at first, but by flowering time their roots and leaves compete for water, light, and nutrients. That competition can result in small fruit that never reaches storage maturity. The small fruit makes acorn squash suitable for a strong trellis, but support is still wise. A simple sling protects the stem and keeps fruit from rubbing against wire. If the plant remains on the ground, slide a dry board, tile, or thick layer of straw beneath each fruit so it does not sit on wet potting mix. When the fruit nears maturity, look for the mature color pattern of the variety: a hard rind and a dry, firm stem. Many green acorn types develop a deep green shell and a ground spot that changes toward orange, but variety descriptions should guide the final decision. Do not use one color rule for every cultivar, and do not assume acorn will store as long as butternut. Acorn squash is often best used earlier in the storage season because its rind and eating quality can decline sooner. Harvest with a clean cut and protect the stem. Cure only according to the needs of the type and variety. Excessive heat can reduce quality in some acorn squash, so do not blindly apply the same treatment to every winter squash. Store mature, undamaged fruit in a cool, dry place with airflow and inspect it frequently. If an acorn squash develops a soft spot, a wet stem, or a sour smell, remove it immediately so decay does not spread. The third squash looks delicate, but its greatest advantage is not only its size. The right cultivar can fit a shorter season better than many larger winter squashes. Delicata squash produces smaller, striped fruit with thin, edible skin, and the fruit size makes it one of the easiest winter squashes to support vertically. But plant habit still varies. Some cultivars are compact, while others trail. A 12 to 15 gallon container can support one compact plant if watering is reliable, though a larger container is more forgiving. Give the plant full sun, a sturdy trellis if needed, and open airflow around the leaves. Delicata is usually grown for a smaller harvest of high-quality fruit, not for a dramatic wall of heavy squash. This makes it a good option for the gardener who values manageable plants and convenient cooking portions. Because delicata fruit can look finished before it is truly mature, track the crop from fruit set. Wait for the cream background and green or orange striping to match the mature description of the cultivar. The rind should firm, and the stem should lose its fresh green softness. If cold weather is arriving, prioritize the most mature fruits and use underdeveloped ones promptly. Mature delicata can be cured briefly in warm ventilated conditions, but it is not usually the squash to hide at the back of the storage room for the entire winter. Plan to eat it before longer keeping butternut or Hubbard types. This is an important storage strategy. Do not simply place everything on a shelf and hope. Arrange crops by expected keeping quality and use the shortest keepers first. Bush spaghetti squash offers the familiar, stringy flesh of standard spaghetti squash on a plant bred for a more contained habit. The crucial word is bush. A regular spaghetti squash planted in a 20-gallon pot can still send vines across a deck, climb through nearby plants, and make maintenance difficult. Select a cultivar specifically described as bush, semi-bush, or short-vined, then check its maturity date. Many spaghetti squashes require roughly 85 to 100 days from direct seeding, so timing remains a serious limit. If you cannot provide enough warm days for the fruit to color fully and harden, choose a faster crop rather than forcing a storage squash into an impossible season. Use a container between 15 and 25 gallons for one bush spaghetti squash plant. A broad, heavy pot is useful because mature foliage catches wind and the fruits add weight. Position the pot before filling it, because moving a fully planted container can damage vines. If the plant spreads, guide the stems in one direction instead of allowing them to cross walkways. If it climbs, use a rigid support and fabric slings. Keep leaves separated from walls where possible so air can circulate. When powdery mildew appears late in the season, a small amount on aging leaves does not always end the crop, but removes severely affected leaves without stripping more than the plant can spare. The remaining healthy foliage must continue feeding the fruit. Spaghetti squash is ready when the rind reaches the mature yellow or golden color of the cultivar. The skin resists a fingernail, and the stem becomes dry and firm. Size alone is not enough. Fruit harvested while pale, soft, and actively growing may have watery flesh and weak storage life. Cut it before hard frost, leave a sound stem, and handle it gently. A fully mature spaghetti squash can often keep for several weeks or a few months under suitable, cool, dry conditions, but inspect it instead of relying on a printed promise. After these first 4 crops, the pattern is clear. Butternut may reward you with longer storage. Acorn is compact, but often should be used sooner. Delicata is manageable and quick to cook. Bush spaghetti saves vine space, but still demands a large root zone. The next 3 squashes reveal an even more important truth. Smaller fruit does not always mean a smaller plant. Small kabocha squash is the 5th crop, and it is a perfect example of the difference between fruit size and plant size. A variety such as a small fruited kabocha may produce squash around individual meal or small family size, but the plant can still be vigorous. Some cultivars are more restrained, while others develop long vines. Read the vine habit before buying seed. A small fruit description tells you what comes from the vine, not how far the vine will travel. For a container, Choose the shortest vined cultivar you can find with a maturity period that fits your climate. Many kabocha types need close to 95 days or more from direct seeding, and the fruit generally needs many weeks after pollination to mature fully. That makes a new late summer sowing most realistic in long season areas. Give one small kabocha plant 20 to 25 gallons of potting mix if possible. A broad half barrel or large fabric grow bag gives the plant a more stable moisture reserve than a narrow bucket. Install a trellis before planting if you plan to grow vertically and make it stronger than you think you need. Wet leaves, vines, and several developing fruits can create a surprising load. Small fruits can be supported with cloth slings, but never tie a narrow string around a fruit or stem. As the fruit expands, a tight tie can cut into the skin. If you keep the vine low, guide it onto a dry surface, and protect the fruit from constant soil moisture. Kabocha responds well to fertile soil, but too much nitrogen late in the season can create a beautiful canopy that delays the harvest. Start with balanced nutrition, follow the product label, and shift the goal from leaf production to fruit maturity once the plant has set a reasonable number of fruits. Keep watering consistent, especially during pollination and early fruit growth. If the plant sets more fruit than the remaining season can mature, it may be better to let it concentrate on the strongest, earliest fruits, rather than carrying many late ones. This is not about forcing an exact number per plant. It is about matching the plant's workload to the time, light, and root volume available. A mature kabocha has the full skin color and texture described for its cultivar, a hard rind, and a stem that has become dry and corky. The surface may lose some of its youthful shine. Count from fruit set when possible, because winter squash commonly requires roughly 50 to 55 days after a successful pollination to reach peak maturity. Harvest before a hard frost. Cut with clean pruners. Leave the stem intact, and avoid knocking one squash against another. Cure sound fruit for about 5 to 7 days in warm, dry, well-ventilated conditions. Or use an indoor area around 80 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit when you can manage it safely. Then store near 50 to 55 degrees with moderate humidity and good airflow. Kabocha often improves in flavor after a short rest, but damaged fruit should be used first. The next crop may produce tiny pumpkins, yet its roots and leaves still expect the treatment of a serious squash plant. Mini pumpkins are useful in small gardens because the fruit can be supported easily, and several cultivars have compact or semi-compact habits. But do not confuse a true mini pumpkin with a standard pumpkin picked young. A normal pumpkin harvested before maturity will not develop the same flavor, rind, or storage ability. Select a cultivar bred to produce mature small fruit. Some mini pumpkins weigh only a few ounces, while others reach 1 to 2 pounds. For a food garden, confirm that the cultivar is edible and has the flavor and texture you want. Because some mini pumpkins are sold mainly for decoration, a compact mini pumpkin can grow in a 15 to 20 gallon container, but the larger end of that range makes care easier. Use one plant per container. If the vine is truly compact, allow it to spill over the rim onto a clean surface. If it is semi-vining, give it a trellis with openings wide enough to guide stems without crushing them. Mini fruits usually do not require heavy slings, but support any fruit that pulls sharply on the stem. Keep the pot in full sun and rotate only before the vine attaches itself to supports. Once the plant is established, moving or turning the container can twist stems and break developing fruit. Harvest mini pumpkins only when their mature color is complete, the rind is hard, and the stem is firm. Leave enough stem to protect the crown of the fruit. A long decorative handle can look attractive, but do not lift the pumpkin by it. Cure mature pumpkins in a warm, dry, ventilated place for approximately 7 to 10 days when conditions allow. Then store them in a cooler, dry location. Keep decorative fruit out of freezing weather and away from rain. A pumpkin displayed outdoors for weeks may still look attractive, but can lose storage life through temperature swings, condensation, and unnoticed skin damage. The 7th squash carries the word small in its description. yet it may be the easiest plant in this group to underestimate. Small Hubbard squash is smaller only in comparison with enormous traditional Hubbard fruit. A baby or small-fruited Hubbard may be easier to cook and support, but the vine can remain powerful. This is not the best choice for a narrow balcony with no room to direct growth. It is better suited to a large patio, driveway edge, or small backyard where a 25-gallon container can sit beside a fence or strong trellis. If your only available pot is 10 gallons and your only open space is a 2-foot corner, choose Delicata, Acorn, or an onion container instead. Good gardening includes knowing when a crop does not fit. Start with a cultivar whose fruit size, vine habit, and maturity date are clearly listed. Hubbard squash often belongs to the longer season side of this list, so a late planting needs a genuinely warm autumn and a strong start. A young transplant can help, but do not buy a plant that has been sitting in a tiny pot with yellow lower leaves and tangled roots. Squash dislikes root disturbance. Slide the root ball out carefully, keep it intact, and plant at the same depth. Water immediately and protect the transplant from intense afternoon sun for the first day or two if it came from sheltered conditions. A large Hubbard plant needs a deliberate route. Guide the vine along a fence line or across an unused edge rather than letting it decide where to go. Do not repeatedly lift and rearrange mature vines because the stems can crack. If climbing, use a permanent support anchored to the wall or ground, not a lightweight tomato cage pushed into loose potting mix. Support every developing fruit with a wide sling. On the ground, place fruit on a dry board or tile and turn it only very gently, if at all. Rough turning can damage the stem and interrupt growth. Hubbard fruit should mature fully before storage. The rind becomes very hard, the color reaches the cultivar's final shade, and the stem dries. Cut before hard frost and handle the fruit like a fragile object, even though the rind looks armored. A small crack can become a large rotten area in storage. Cure sound fruit for approximately 5 to 7 days in warm, dry, ventilated conditions, then move it to cool storage. Hubbards often develop better eating quality after a few weeks, but this benefit applies only to mature, healthy fruit. A squash that was frozen, bruised, or cut should be cooked promptly, not placed behind the good fruit. We have now covered 7 winter squashes. The easier container choices are usually compact butternut, bush acorn, delicata, and bush spaghetti squash, provided the maturity period fits. Small kabocha and mini pumpkin can be excellent when the cultivar is truly restrained. Small Hubbard needs the most room and the longest look at your calendar. Here is the mid-video truth that protects you from wasting a season. Compact growth habit and maturity time are 2 different things. A plant can fit your patio and still run out of warm days before its fruit is ready. If your frost date is close, use the remaining container space for a crop that can finish or for a fall planting that is meant to overwinter. Every harvest so far has developed above the soil. Now we are moving to crops whose real payoff remains hidden until the day you dig. Sweet potato is number 8, and it loves heat more than almost any crop in this video. That is both its strength and its limitation. In a long, hot southern season, healthy slips planted into a large container can continue building storage roots well into fall. In a northern region with cool nights approaching, a new late summer planting may produce attractive vines, but very little usable root. Most sweet potato cultivars need roughly 90 to 120 warm days after slips are planted. If you do not have that window, grow the slips for edible leaves only where that use is appropriate, or wait until next year rather than expecting a major tuber harvest. Begin with vigorous, disease-free slips, 6 to 12 inches long, with several healthy leaves and visible root development. Do not plant a grocery store sweet potato directly in the container and expect the same clean result. Commercial roots can sprout, but purchase slips from a reputable supplier provide clearer variety, identity, and reduce some disease risk. Use one large slip or a small number, spaced widely, in a 15 to 20 gallon container. A 25-gallon container gives more room for storage roots and holds moisture longer. Choose a wide container rather than an extremely tall tower. Sweet potatoes form storage roots in the soil near the rooted nodes. Continuously adding feet of soil does not guarantee more tubers. Fill the container with loose, well-drained mix. Heavy, waterlogged soil encourages misshapen roots and decay. Plant slips deeply enough to bury several nodes while keeping the upper leaves above the surface. Water thoroughly and keep the mix evenly moist during establishment. Once the vines are growing strongly, allow the upper inch to dry slightly between deep waterings. Sweet potatoes tolerate short, dry periods better than constantly saturated roots, but repeated severe wilting can reduce growth. Apply a balanced or lower nitrogen fertilizer according to the label. Too much nitrogen creates an impressive curtain of vines at the expense of storage root development. The vines can spill over the sides of the container, climb a low support, or run along a railing. Do not allow them to root into neighboring containers if you want the plant's energy concentrated in the main pot. Lift wandering vines gently from the soil rather than cutting healthy growth repeatedly. The leaves are edible when properly prepared, but harvesting too many leaves reduces the plant's photosynthetic capacity. Take only a modest amount if root production is the goal. Watch for sweet potato weevils and other regional pests, and remove damaged foliage when necessary without stripping the plant. Plan to harvest before cold soil injures the roots. Sweet potatoes are sensitive to chilling. Many extension guides recommend digging before soil temperatures fall below approximately 55 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Stop heavy watering several days before harvest if the mix is very wet, then tip a flexible grow bag or loosen the potting mix carefully by hand. Sweet potato skin is thin and easily scraped at harvest. A fresh scrape is not merely cosmetic. It is a wound that can lose moisture or admit decay. Set aside badly cut roots for immediate use. Do not leave freshly dug roots baking in direct sun. Cure sweet potatoes immediately in a warm, humid place. Ideally around 80 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit, with about 85 to 90% relative humidity for 7 to 10 days. The purpose is to heal small wounds, reduce moisture loss, and improve eating quality. A home gardener may use a small insulated room, a warm closet with controlled humidity, or another safe setup with a thermometer and airflow. Do not seal wet roots in an airtight plastic box. After curing, store them near 55 to 60 degrees in a dark, ventilated place. Refrigerators are usually too cold for long-term sweet potato storage. Inspect frequently and remove roots that become soft, wet, or moldy. Sweet potatoes love heat, but the next crop often performs best as temperatures begin moving in the opposite direction. Late potatoes, also called fall potatoes in suitable regions, can take advantage of cooler weather, but they still need a carefully timed season. In the deep south and some mild climates, gardeners plant a fall crop after the worst summer heat. In northern areas, potatoes are usually planted much earlier because freezing weather arrives too soon. Check a local fall planting guide before buying seed potatoes. Choose an early or mid-season cultivar if the available window is limited, and choose a cultivar known for storage if winter keeping is your goal. A potato that matures quickly is not automatically a good storage potato, so read both parts of the description. Use certified seed potatoes that are firm and free of decay. Cut large seed pieces so each piece has at least 1 or 2 strong eyes and enough flesh to support early growth. Allow freshly cut surfaces to dry and heal for several days in a cool, ventilated place before planting. Small whole seed potatoes can be planted without cutting. For a 15 to 20 gallon grow bag, 2 or 3 seed pieces are usually enough. Crowding the container with 6 or 8 pieces may produce many stems but leaves little soil volume for each plant and can result in a harvest of tiny tubers. Start with 6 to 8 inches of potting mix in the bottom. Place the seed pieces with eyes facing upward and cover them with 3 to 4 inches of mix. As stems grow, add more mix gradually around them until the container is nearly full, but never bury the entire plant. Leave the upper leaves exposed. This hilling protects developing tubers from light and gives the stems a larger covered zone. However, the popular idea that an endlessly tall tower will produce potatoes all the way from bottom to top is unreliable. Many cultivars set tubers within a limited zone. A broad container with good soil volume is more dependable than a narrow tower built mainly for height. Keep the potting mix evenly moist, particularly during flowering and tuber formation. Avoid waterlogging because potato roots and tubers need oxygen. Mulch the surface after the final hilling. Watch for flea beetles, Colorado potato beetles, early blight, late blight, and bacterial soft rot, according to your region. Remove diseased foliage, and do not compost plants affected by serious disease unless local guidance says it is safe. If late blight is suspected, contact local extension guidance because infected tubers can decay rapidly in storage. You can harvest small new potatoes after flowering by gently checking near the surface, but storage potatoes need more time. Allow the vines to yellow and die back naturally. Then wait about 10 to 14 days in dry conditions so skins can set. Stop watering during this period unless the container is extremely dry and the crop is still actively growing. Tip the bag or loosen the mix carefully, keeping harvested tubers out of direct sunlight. A storage-ready potato should have skin that does not rub off easily with your thumb. Green potatoes have been exposed to light and should not be eaten because greening can indicate elevated glycoalkaloids. Discard heavily green or sprouted potatoes rather than trying to trim every questionable area. Cure sound potatoes in darkness or under cover at approximately 50 to 65 degrees Fahrenheit with good ventilation for 10 to 14 days. Then move them to a dark, cool, humid storage area, generally around 38 to 40 degrees for table potatoes, while avoiding freezing. Potatoes intended for frying may be stored slightly warmer to reduce cold-induced sweetening. Never store potatoes in light, and do not seal them in airtight plastic. Use ventilated boxes, paper sacks with openings, or breathable bins. Check for soft, shriveled, leaking, or foul-smelling tubers. One rotting potato can spread moisture and bacteria through the container, so remove it immediately. The next root crop takes much longer to mature, which means starting from seed late in the season is usually the wrong strategy. Celeriac, also called celery root, is number 10. It is grown for a swollen, knobby stem base, rather than a true underground root like a carrot. Celeriac begins slowly and commonly needs a long season, often 110 to 150 days depending on the cultivar and growing conditions. If you are beginning in late summer, do not sow seed and expect a full storage crop before winter. Look for sturdy transplants that were started many weeks earlier. In a cool fall climate, those transplants can continue enlarging after summer crops decline, and mature plants tolerate light frost better than sweet potatoes or squash. Use a container at least 12 inches deep and wide enough to give each plant 8 to 12 inches of spacing. A 10 to 15 gallon container can hold one large plant or several carefully spaced plants, depending on its diameter. Celeriac prefers rich, moisture-retentive soil that still drains well. Set the transplant with its crown at the soil surface. Do not bury the swollen base deeply, because the edible portion develops around the crown and upper root zone. Keep the mix consistently moist. Drought can produce a small, woody, strongly flavored bulb, while waterlogging can cause rot. Feed lightly but regularly according to a balanced fertilizer label. Celeriac has a long growth period, so a single early feeding may not support it through autumn. Remove only the lowest yellowing leaves and avoid stripping healthy foliage. Some gardeners trim small side roots as the bulb develops, but this is optional and should be done carefully. The more important tasks are steady moisture, open spacing, and patience. If hot weather caused growth to stall, cooler nights may restart steady enlargement. Protect the container from hard freezes with insulation or move it to a sheltered area, but do not place it in a warm, dark room while the plant is still growing. Harvest celeriac when the swollen base reaches a useful size, often 3 to 5 inches across, or before severe freezing damages the container. Cut off the leaves, leaving a short crown, and trim the fine roots. Unlike winter squash or sweet potatoes, celeriac is not cured in warm air. Brush off loose soil and store it cold and humid, close to refrigerator conditions, in a perforated bag or a box of slightly damp sand. Do not make the packing material wet. Check for soft spots and use damaged bulbs first. Celeriac gives the video a useful contrast. It is a storage crop, but its best storage environment is cold and moist, rather than cool and dry. The final three crops use less horizontal space, but their planting calendars are more regional than almost anything else in this video. Onions are number 11, and the first decision is not the container. It is day length. Long day onions begin forming bulbs when summer days reach roughly 14 to 16 hours and are best suited to northern regions. Short day onions begin bulbing with about 10 to 12 hours of daylight and are used mainly in the south. Intermediate day onions fit areas between those zones. Planting the wrong type may produce healthy leaves but disappointing bulbs. Late in the season, seed is usually too slow for a storage crop. Transplants or small sets provide a more advanced starting point, but even those must match local planting dates. In warm southern regions, short-day onions may be planted in fall and grown through winter. In cold regions, storage onions are generally started much earlier and harvested in late summer. Choose a wide container, at least 10 to 12 inches deep. A 15-gallon tub can hold several onions when they are spaced 4 to 6 inches apart. For full bulbs, do not crowd them like scallions. Plant sets or transplants shallowly, with the base rooted and the upper neck near the surface. Deep planting can restrict bulb expansion. Onions have shallow roots, so they need steady moisture, but the mix must drain freely. Mulch lightly and keep weeds out. Feed during active leaf growth, then reduce nitrogen as bulbing begins. Each healthy leaf helps form a ring in the bulb, but excessive late nitrogen can delay maturity and create thick necks that store poorly. Harvest storage onions when about half to 3/4 of the tops have naturally fallen and begun drying. Do not force green tops down early just to imitate maturity. Lift the bulbs gently in dry weather and cure them in a warm, dry, well-ventilated place, usually 75 to 90 degrees Fahrenheit, for 2 to 4 weeks. Keep them out of rain and direct contact with wet soil. Curing is complete when the outer skins are papery and the neck is tight and dry. Trim the tops only after curing, leaving about 1 inch of neck or braid suitable varieties. Store only firm bulbs with closed necks. Sweet onions contain more water and generally do not keep as long as pungent storage types, so use them first. Shallots are number 12. They resemble onions, but one planted bulb usually divides into a cluster. This multiplying habit makes them productive in a wide patio box, yet each cluster needs room to expand. Plant sets about 4 to 6 inches apart in a container 10 to 12 inches deep, with the pointed tip just at or slightly above the surface. Use a loose, well-drained mix and full sun. Shallots dislike standing water, especially during cool weather. Their planting season varies. Fall planting works in many mild regions and with hardy cultivars, while colder areas may require spring planting or winter protection. Follow regional guidance rather than copying a calendar from another state. Keep shallots evenly moist during active growth, then reduce watering as the tops yellow and fall. Harvest the clusters in dry weather, separate them gently, and cure them in a warm, airy, shaded place for 2 to 4 weeks. The skins should dry, and the necks should tighten. Remove any bulb that is cut, soft, or moldy. Store cured shallots in mesh bags, open baskets, or another breathable container in a cool, dry location. Save the healthiest bulbs for replanting only if they are true to type and free from disease. Shallots can be an excellent small space storage crop, but the final crop will not fill your shelf this winter. Planting it at the right time begins one of next year's most useful harvests. Garlic is number 13. In most of the United States, garlic is planted in fall, several weeks before the ground freezes, and harvested the following summer. The cloves need time to form roots before deep winter, and many types benefit from winter cold to divide into a full bulb. In mild southern climates, growers choose adapted softneck or low-chill varieties and follow a different schedule. Hardneck garlic is usually favored in colder regions while soft-neck garlic generally stores longer and performs well in milder climates. Buy disease-free seed garlic from a reputable supplier. Grocery store garlic may be unsuitable for your region or treated to reduce sprouting. Use a container at least 12 inches deep and as wide as your space allows. A 15-gallon tub can hold several cloves spaced about 6 inches apart. Make sure the container will not crack during winter and that drainage holes remain open. Separate the bulb into individual cloves immediately before planting, keeping the papery wrapper intact. Plant the largest healthy cloves with the pointed end up, about 2 to 3 inches deep in mild climates and slightly deeper where winter is severe. Cover the surface with 2 to 4 inches of clean straw or shredded leaves in cold regions. Mulch moderates freezing and thawing, but remove excess in spring if it keeps the soil waterlogged. Garlic needs little visible growth before winter. A small green shoot is not a failure, and no shoot does not mean the clove is dead. The main work may be happening below the surface. In spring, resume regular watering and feed according to local recommendations. Hardneck types produce a flower stalk called a scape. Removing it after it curls can direct more energy toward the bulb, and the scape is edible. Stop heavy watering as lower leaves begin to brown near harvest. Lift bulbs when several lower leaves have dried but several upper leaves remain green. Waiting until every leaf is dead can leave the bulb wrappers split and reduce storage quality. Cure whole garlic plants in a shaded, warm, dry, airy place for about 3 to 4 weeks. Hang small bundles or lay plants in a single layer on racks. Do not wash the bulbs. After curing, trim roots close to the base and cut the tops 1/2 to 1 inch above the bulb unless you are braiding soft-neck garlic. Store firm, well-wrapped bulbs in a cool, dry, ventilated place. Garlic planted this fall will not provide mature bulbs for the coming winter, but it turns an empty container into a crop that is already working toward next summer. Not every crop on this list belongs to the same harvest year, and that longer timeline is exactly why planting at the correct season matters. Now bring all 13 crops together. The best choice is not the crop with the largest fruit or the longest storage claim. It is the crop that can finish in your climate and remain healthy in your container. If you have more than 100 warm days and a 20-gallon pot, a compact butternut, small kabocha, mini pumpkin, sweet potato, or late potato may be realistic, depending on regional planting dates. If you have 80 to 100 warm days, early bush acorn, delicata, bush spaghetti squash, or transplants may offer better odds. If frost is close, do not force a new warm season squash. Use established celeriac transplants, regionally timed onions or shallots, or prepare a container for fall garlic. These are not guarantees. They are decision ranges that must be checked against the cultivar label and your local forecast. At harvest, separate produce into 3 groups. The first group is fully mature, clean, firm, and free from cuts. This is your storage group. The second group has a shallow scrape, broken stem, insect scar, or small bruise, but is otherwise sound. Use this group first after trimming or cooking safely. The third group has soft rot, leaking areas, mold, a foul smell, deep cuts, freezing injury, or serious disease. Do not store it beside healthy produce. When in doubt about safety, discard it. Storage cannot repair decay. It only slows deterioration in produce that was healthy when it entered the room. Curing is not one universal treatment. Butternut, kabocha, mini pumpkin, Hubbard, and many other winter squashes benefit from several warm, dry, ventilated days. But Acorn and Delicata should not be exposed blindly to excessive heat. Sweet potatoes need a much warmer and more humid cure, around 80 to 85 degrees, with high humidity for 7 to 10 days. Irish potatoes need darkness, moderate warmth, humidity, and about 10 to 14 days for skins and wounds to heal. Onions and shallots need 2 to 4 warm, dry, airy weeks until necks and skins are completely dry. Garlic is cured as a whole plant for about 3 to 4 weeks. Celeriac is not warm cured at all. It is cleaned lightly, trimmed, and stored cold and humid. After curing, Label every batch with the crop, cultivar, and harvest date. Place the shortest keeping crops where you can reach them first. Delicata and Acorn generally belong toward the front. Butternut, kabocha, Hubbard, storage onions, garlic, potatoes, and properly cured sweet potatoes may keep longer under suitable conditions, but inspect them every week. Do not let fruit touch a damp wall or concrete floor. Keep potatoes completely dark. Keep onions and garlic dry with airflow. Keep celeriac cold and humid. Never allow any crop to freeze. A garage that is perfect in October may become destructive in January. So place a minimum and maximum thermometer in the storage area and adjust before extreme weather. The produce that looks almost perfect but carries a cut, a soft spot, or a damaged stem should be used first, not hidden in the middle of the storage shelf. Rotate squash gently during inspections so one side does not remain against a hard surface for months. Smell the storage area. A sweet, sour, or fermented odor often reveals decay before you see it. Remove failing produce immediately, wipe the shelf, and inspect its neighbors. Keep notes about which cultivars lasted best in your home. Those notes will be more valuable next season than a generic storage chart because they reflect your climate, your harvest maturity, and your actual storage room. An empty container at the end of summer is not proof that you missed your chance. It is an invitation to make a better timed choice. Maybe your best crop is a compact butternut transplant with enough warm days left. Maybe it is a full potato bag, a box of onions, a row of shallots, or one celeriac plant that continues swelling through cool weather. Maybe the most intelligent choice is garlic, planted now for a harvest you will lift next summer. A successful winter container garden is not built by planting every crop on a list. It is built by choosing the few crops that match your space, your climate, and the time you truly have left. Check your frost date, read the cultivar description, prepare the largest practical container, and begin with the crop that can honestly finish. Then cure it carefully, store it correctly, and let today's empty pot become tomorrow's food.